Boker Tov. Today's Daf Yomi is Bava Metzia Daf Bava Metzia 6. Today we're going to dedicate our Daf Yomi for Yeshua, for Am Yisrael, Shmira for the Chayalim, Hatzoah for the Shvuyim. Today's Daf Yomi, we're going to start on top of Bava Metzia 6, Vav Amud Aleph. The Gemara is discussing a statement by Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan said that just because you're suspected about money, we don't say we don't say that just because we have suspicions about you about money, we also have suspicions about you about your oath. That it's possible that you're telling the truth, and we'll allow you to take an oath, even though we have suspicions about money. So the Gemara is trying to prove the statement of Rabbi Yochanan. So the Gemara on Bava Metzia says at the top, maybe it comes from Elahada Amar Rav Nachman. Maybe it comes from the fact that Rav Nachman taught Mashpiono so Shvuas Heses. If a person denies everything, we make him take an oath called a Shvuas Heses. And this is an oath to appease the person who makes the accusation. So how are we making him take an oath if he is suspected about not telling the truth? Why don't we say Neimu Migu de Chashem Mara Chashadash Shvuasa? So this proves that, like Rabbi Yochanan, that just because we suspect him about money, we don't suspect him about an oath. Visu, and furthermore, Hadatani Rabbi Chia, this is the case that Rabbi Chia taught, which we had already earlier in our tractate, that we stated Shneim Nishban V'Notlu Mibal Abayis, that in the case where the Chanvani Al Pinkaso, where there was a balabais, an employer, and he asked the shopkeeper to pay his employees. The shopkeeper claims they paid them, and the employees claim they received them. They never received the money. So we say both of them take an oath, and they take the money from the balabais. But there too, why don't we say, since one of them is for sure lying, that we suspect them about the money, they'll be suspected about the oath. Why don't we say migu de chashem mona chashash v'lasa? And so we don't say that. And furthermore, another proof: suhada amar of sheishes. So that if a person is a watchman and he denies that he was negligent when he was watching the deposit in his possession, we make them take 3 oaths. One, shvua shel pashati, but an oath that I was not negligent. Shvua shel shalachti bayad, an oath that I never basically used it for my own purposes. And third, shvua she'ena bershusi, an oath that it's not in my possession. Here too, don't we say that since we make him take an oath that it's not in his possession, we suspect him that maybe it's in his possession. So therefore, why here also don't we say migu de chashel amona chashelash v'alsa? So we see from here, like Rabbi Yochanan says, the Gemara, migu de chashel amona chashelash v'alsa. We see, like, from these cases, proof for Rabbi Yochanan that we don't say that since he's suspected about money, he's also suspected about taking an oath. Abaye says no. Going back, the reasoning from our Mishnah that we allow him to take an oath, in this case, we're both grab the talis, and we say take an oath, and we don't suspect, and we allow them to take an oath, is not because, like Rabbi Yochanan says, that migu de chashel mamona, that just because they're suspected about money, we don't suspect them about an oath. But he's saying it's a different reason. That indeed, Rabbi Abaye says, if he would really be suspected about money, then we would really, if we would suspect him of just going around grabbing his friend's talis for no reason, then we would indeed suspect him and not allow him to take an oath. But here the reason is a different scenario. What's the scenario, says Abaye? The scenario of our Mishnah is Chashin and Shema Milva Yeshena Yeshua. The guy, Ruvain, says, listen, I know that Shimon owes me money because I lent him $1,000 2 years ago. He doesn't remember it. And so therefore I'm going to go and seize the garment so that I can get my money back. Well, the Gemara says, well, if that's the scenario, then why do we make him take an oath? Since he obviously has something on him, he wouldn't have grabbed it. So why do we make him take an oath there at all? No, so we're concerned that maybe he's not sure. We suspect that maybe he had a loan, meaning to say he's not sure. Maybe he had a uncertain loan to this guy. And so therefore, that's the case. So Gemara says, V'lav amrina tafes memona misafek mishtabanami misafek. So wait, don't we say if he's just grabbing the money out of a doubt that he would also be willing to take an oath out of a doubt? So aren't we basically pushing him into that situation? And so what are we getting out of this situation by making him take an oath? So Gemara says no, by forcing him to take an oath, if it was just grabbing it out of a doubt, he wouldn't take the oath. Why? Because parish inshim is suffix shvuah, or parish inshim is suffix lemona. If a person has to take an oath and he's not certain, he won't take the oath. But if he has to take the money out of a doubt, will take it. He will take it. My time. And what's the reason? Mamon isei bechazara shvuah isei bechazara. The money, he would be, if he took it out of a doubt, he knows in his mind that if he turns out he was wrong, he could always return it. Whereas an oath, if he takes it out of a doubt, he once he makes the oath to God, he's done a terrible sin if he was wrong, and so therefore he won't take the oath out of a doubt. So now we start an interesting discussion. The case of takfa. So we had said in our mission, if two people grab a hold of a talus out of the garment, that one person, that they both split it. They both split it. And they each had taken oath that they don't have less than half of it. So by Rabbi Zera asked the following question. Takfa echad b'fanenu mahu. So let's say they're both holding on to it, and then one of them just grabs it away from the other one. Now, what would be the case there? Would we say that the guy who grabbed it away gets to keep the whole thing? So Gemara first says, let's analyze what's Rabbi Zera really asking. Hey, Chidami, what's the scenario? You have the place, guy? You got it? We're in the middle of 6A, probably, yeah. So Rabbi Zera is asking the question, if one of them seizes it, either shasik. Now, what's the scenario? If the guy from whom it was grabbed, if he was quiet, oduye, that's an indication that he's admitting to the, that's an indication that he's admitting that he doesn't really own it. And if he's screaming, he says, it's mine. Well, so then, of course, it should still be the same claims. What else could he have done? So the Gemara says, no, we're talking about a case. Initially, he was quiet, and only afterwards did he start to scream about it. What do we say there? What do we say? Do we say from the fact that he was quiet initially, that proves that he was admitting it wasn't his. Odelma, even the katzavach, hashta, igoi milsa, the haida shatzak meikara, so, or do we say, from the fact that he's screaming out now, it's become clear that the fact that he was initially quiet, Savar, he thought, Rabbanon, says, I'm in a court. The rabbis see what I'm doing, and so therefore, they're going to take care of it. So, Amar Rav Nachman, how do we answer Rabbi Zera's question? So Rav Nachman says, Tashma, but Bamedvar Mamurim, when do we say that they divided up, when they're both, that they split the talus, that both of them are holding it. But if only one of them has the talus, so Rav Nachman gives this statement that when do we say that they split the talus? If both of them are holding it, but if only one of them is holding it and the other one wants it, then the burden of proof rests on the one who wants to take the talus away from the other person. Now, Gemara assumes that this case, this teaching of Rav Nachman, is so obvious that it has to be referring to it can't be referring just to the simple case. It has to be referring to a more complicated case. So the Gemara says, Hechidami. What's Rav Nachman talking about? If it's just simply as we simply read Rav Nachman's statement, well, pshita. Well, that's obvious that if one person has it, the other one gets it, he has to bring a proof. So it must be ela shetakfa echa b'fanenu. So we must say that we're talking about a case where one of them seized it from right there in front of us, and we now say that the other one who wants it has to bring a proof. So that answers Rabbi Zera's question. If one of them seized it, the other one has to bring a proof in order to get it, and we don't split it. The Gemara says no, not necessarily. Hacha b'mayaskinin can go into asula kaman kiditafisule travayu. No, we could be talking about a case where they came in front of us and they were both holding it. When we said to them, we said, go split it. V'nafku, and they went out. V'hadar also kitafas lachad minayu. And then when they came back, only one of them has it. Hi, Amar Oduye Udule. The guy who has it says, the other guy admitted to me. V'hai Amar, and the second person says, no, the reason why he has it is bidmei agarti nile. I rented it out to him. So the Amrinule, we say to the guy whose claim is that I rented it out to him, we say ad hashta chashadatale begazon. Up until now, you were suspicious. You were suspecting him of being a robber, and now you want us to believe, and now you want us to believe that you rented him without witnesses. No, if you want to get it from now, you have to bring witnesses. The burden of proof is on you. Or alternatively, that it's literally like we taught. But what happened was the asul kaman kitafas lachad minayo, that one of them was holding it v'idach misrach bas seruche, and the other one was just holding it at the corner. And we say under these circumstances, v'afilu l'sumchas damar maman amutu b'salfek cholkem shvua, and even according to Sumchas, who says that money that is in doubt, we divide up without an oath. Moda Sumchas would admit the surcha lav klumhu, that holding it at the corner is nothing. And he doesn't even require an oath because it's not even a doubt, because this guy holding on the corner of something is nothing. And so therefore we would require the one who was just holding by the corner to bring a full proof in order to get it. Now the Gemara is going to begin the sugya of what's called takfa kohen. So we have the following question. If you want to say takfa echad b'fanenu, that if one of them was toke, if he seized it in front of us, motzino somiyoda, we take it away from him. We don't accept that you could grab it from the other one. Then, under those circumstances, hiktisha, if they're both fighting over it, and one of them says, I'm consecrating this to the temple, it's not going to be a valid betrothal. But because we don't allow you to seize it. But but if you say that if one of them seizes it in front of us, we don't take it away from him, meaning to say if one of them seizes it, you have the right to seize it, then hiktisha below takfa mahu. Then let's say while they're fighting over it, one of them says, I'm giving it to the temple. What would be the case there? Would we say, Kivin Amar, since we say we have a statement that, and we've had this already in Avodah Zarah, in Basra, in Kedushin, in Nedarim, in Tamura, we say, since we have a statement that just saying something, Amiraso Igvoa, that just verbally declaring you're giving something to the temple is the equivalent of Kamisiraso Ajot. Dami is the equivalent of handing it over to a regular person. Therefore, commanded takva dami. In this case, it's like he seized it, and so therefore we're going to consider it like it was dedicated to the temple. Or do we say no? He can't give it because he doesn't have it in his possession. Because it states ishki yaktish espeso. A man will consecrate his house kodesh. So just like his house has to be in his domain in order to consecrate it, I've called Bershuso. So you can only consecrate something in your house. Lafuke, Haidelo Bershuso, to exclude this case where he doesn't have it yet, so it's not consecrated. So therefore, the question is something that two men are fighting over, and one person, just without really gaining full possession of it, says, I'm consecrating it to the temple. Is it going to be considered like he grabbed it, and then it would have been his if he grabbed it, but in this case, he dedicated the temple, so it's considered like it's dedicated. And the Gemara says, let's try and bring a proof for the following incident. Tashma dahi, there was a masuta, there was a bathhouse. We're on the top of 6B. There was a bathhouse on top of 6B. That they trade. The two people were fighting over it. Hayamar didehu. One says, this is my bathhouse. Hayamar didehu. The other one says, this is my bathhouse. So it's like the case of two people fighting over the garment. Kamchan minayu akdasha. So one of them got up and he consecrated it. So do we say it's like it's the temples now? Now you can't get any benefit from it. So Parshamine Rav Chananya Rav Oshaya. So the rabbis in that area, Rav Chananya, Rav Oshaya, they said Vikul Rabbanim, Rav Chananya, Rav Oshaya, and all the rabbis in that town. They said, well, we're not sure. Maybe it belongs to the temple now. So they stopped. Using that bathhouse because maybe it's the temples and they can't get benefit from it. So Rav Oshaya said to Rabba, Ki Azos coming to Rav Chisda Kafri. When you go in front of Rav Chisda in Kafri, ask him this question. So ask him, what's the story of this bathhouse? Ki also Surah, they didn't get all the way to Kafri. When Rabba got to Surah, Amrway Rav Hamnuna, he stopped, he asked Rav Hamnuna. Rav Hamnuna said, Mas Nisanhi. It's a Mishnah. We can answer this question from the case of our Mishnah. This is a Mishnah in Taharos. Now, what does the Mishnah say? Hold on one second. Now, what does the Mishnah say? Hold on. So what does the Mishnah say? Mishnah says the following. Safek bechoro. So let's say you have an animal, you're not sure if it's a firstborn, in which case you would need to give it to the Kohen or redeem it if it's a firstborn donkey. How can you not be sure if it's a firstborn? You're not sure if the mother had a miscarriage. You're not sure. You're not sure if she had a baby beforehand or not. You don't know. So whether it's a firstborn person, which you'd have to do a pigeon of ben, or whether it's a firstborn animal, Bain Torim, whether it's a kosher animal, or Bain Tameim, whether it's a non-kosher animal, i.e. a donkey, that we're going to say the burden of proof rests on the one who wants to take it. Meaning to say, if you have it in your possession, you're not a Kohen. Kohen has to prove that it's a firstborn animal. If the Kohen has it, in order for you to get it back, you have to prove from him that it's not. Vitani Allah, and we learn about this, Asurim Begiza Uba Avoda, that we're going to say about this, that if it's a doubt whether or not it's a firstborn animal, you're not allowed to shear it and you're not allowed to work it because we are concerned that maybe it's a firstborn animal and they have sanctity and you're not allowed to use it. Vitania the hacha, and in this case, the Amar Takfu Kohen, that if the Kohen would grab a hold of it and seize it, since we say Amotz Mechavera Olav Araya, that the burden of proof rests upon one who wants to take it back, if the Kohen would seize it, Emotzino Som Miyodo, we wouldn't be able to take it back from him because we say Amotz Mechavera Olav Araya, that the burden of proof rests on the one who wants to get it out of the other person's position. V'chilo takfu, and even though he hasn't grabbed it yet, asur begiza v'avoda, he's not allowed to work it. It has sanctity. So we see from here that in a case where you haven't yet grabbed it, the animal could still have sanctity. So we should answer this question that you could consecrate it even though you don't yet have it in your possession. Gemara says, Amalei Rabba says, no, that's not a proof. Kedushas bechor kamas, you're talking about the sanctity of a firstborn animal. It's a totally different case. I could say to you, Tukful Kohen, that if a Kohen seizes it, Motzino Osomiyado, that we would in fact take it away from him, because I could really say to you, Tukful Kohen, Motzino Osomiyado, that even if he seized it, we would take it away from him. And still in this case, even if the Kohen seized it, we would take it away from him. And nevertheless, this case is different because Asurim Begiza Ba'avoda, Kedusha Ba Me'aleh Shani. That the sanctity here is totally different. Why is the sanctity here totally different? Because this is not something that somebody is making sacred. He's not consecrating it on his own. It's something that was Kedusha Ba Me'aleh, that there was sanctity that came on its own, that it was born that way. And so therefore we're going to view it as different. And that's why the sanctity is always there. And so it's not a direct parallel. So Amar Rav Chananya or Rabba, Tanya the Messiah. So Rav Chananya says to Rabba, I'll have a brisa that supports your position, that we're going to say that the seizing of the Kohen is not necessarily going to be effective if it's a doubtful as a firstborn. If it's a Safek Bechor, I'll have a brisa that supports you. What's the brisa that supports you? because we say hasfekos nechnasen ladir. So we know that there's a law of Ma'aser Behema that the newborn animals from that season, you have to take 10 of them. And the first one you say is for me, second for me, 9 for me, and then the 10th one you say is for God. But let's say you have an animal that you're not sure if it was required to have a redemption or not, that you're not sure if it was a firstborn animal or not. And so therefore, like we just said above, out of a doubt, we don't have to give it to the Kohen. And so now let's say he has these animals that are not sure, we say that under these circumstances that they we put them into the corral to tithe them. So we do tithe these animals that even though they're a suffix, even though they're a doubt. And so says the Gemara, if you're going to be at the position, says Rav Chananya, that takfo Kohen a motzino some other, that if the Kohen seized it, we're not allowed to take it away from him. So then we're going to see it's actually already like it's the Kohen's, because if he seized it, then it's his. So if that's the case, how can we take it into the corral to tithe it with the other animals? Nimtza zepo there, mamono shel Kohen. He's tithing his animals with the animal of the Kohen's. It's not effective. So this proves that if the Kohen would seize it, we would take it away from him and wouldn't allow it to be in his possession. So says Abaye, Amar Abaye, Imishim ha lo tisayel amar. No, that's not going to be a good proof. Why? Because we could say, what's the scenario talking about? Could go on Hachamayaskina, and what could we say this is talking about? Could go on Deleisle Elatisha. We could say that what we're talking about here is that it's possible that there were only 9 animals in the pen, and now you have this animal that's a doubt, and you brought it in to tie it with the other ones. That one way or another, you're going to be okay. Because if this animal is not a firstborn animal, and therefore you have to tithe it, shapir kamaiser, you're effectively tithing it. And but if this animal is a suffix, and if this animal which is a suffix is actually a firstborn animal, but if we're going to say if you have to tithe it, shapir kamaiser, then you're doing effectively. But if we're going to say that it's not a bar chiyuvu, that if it was an actual firstborn animal, well then tisha lav bar asuri nenu, and we only have 9 animals, and so therefore you don't need to tithe them, and so therefore this is not a proof. So therefore this is not a proof that if the Kohen seizes it, you take it away. Amar Abaye, but Hadar Amar Abaye. Then Abaye reversed himself and he says, Lav Milsa Hidamri. He says, actually, that which I said is not a proof, because really I'll say the Sveika Lav Barasuri. He says, actually, he says this is not a proof at all, because actually the truth is that if it is, an animal that's in doubt, you don't need to tithe it at all. And even if you would have thought that you could effectively do it in this case of 9 or 10, we say actually you really can't tithe it at all. So Abaye is saying that really it's the case that if the Kohen seized it, we would take it away, and the Kohen has no right to it. Because if the Kohen had a real right to it, we would say that he wouldn't need to tithe that at all, because out of a doubt we don't tithe things. The Tanan, how do we know that out of a doubt we don't tithe it? From the following Mishnah from Bechoros. What does the Mishnah tell us? Kafat echad min hamenuyim. Let's say you counted the sheep and you counted animals, and you would say that these animals were tithed, and then one of those animals that was already tithed jumped back into the pack. Then we're going to say kuan peturin. All of those animals, whether or not they were counted or not, are all going to be exempt, because we say once an animal that was exempt from a tithe got mixed in, out of a doubt we don't tithe it. And if you want to say that out of a doubt we should tithe it, then why wouldn't we just say tithe it? Because if the one that you're tithing was not yet counted, shapir meiser, then he's effective in tithing it. And if it's not capable, if it's not required to be tithed, then we're going to say Niftar, it's exempt from minyan haroi because it was part of the ones that were already counted. The Amarava, minyan haroi poter, that if it was effectively counted once, then it's exempt. So what must we say? We're on top of 7a. Asiri vade amarachmana, that only if it's certainly 10 animals do you have to tithe it. Below a series suffix, but not out of a doubt. And Hachanami, also in this case, we're going to say Asiri vade amarachmana below a series suffix. We don't tithe it at all out of a doubt. And so therefore, the reason why we're tithing it is because the Kohen must not have any ownership at all in this lamb. And so therefore we say Takfo Kohen, that if the Kohen seizes it, it has accomplished nothing. And so we see from here that Takfo Kohen, that if the Kohen seizes it, he doesn't have it. And we would, working backwards, we say if somebody seizes the talus, he doesn't get it. So therefore we'll stop the recording here. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to address.